Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you guys checked out my videos before, I have a lot of cameras and I use them for different purposes. The majority of things I shoot is usually wedding photography and videography, and I dabble in some other videos like automotive, real estate, just, whatever to satisfy my hobbies. I do a lot of concert videos, so I have different cameras for different uses. So I purchased this Blackmagic 6K. This is the Cinema 6K full frame. About when it went on that sale, when it was $1,500, I just couldn't pass up the deal. You guys are probably familiar. It has Blackmagic RAW. It only shoots in Blackmagic RAW, but it shoots in 6K open gate. So it's pretty cool that you can shoot in 6K open gate and then reframe as you go. Since then, the Pixis came out, and this is the same sensor as this camera, but you can rig it out more. So I think this camera is really cool. It gives me those 1D vibes from back in the day, the DSLR days. It's a big chunky camera. For a minute, I had the battery grip on here, so you can put in 2 extra batteries, but it just made this camera very unusable. So right now, I'm gonna show you guys how I rig this up and the purpose. So I use this camera basically for YouTube videos, for these home studio videos, interviews, things like that. So this camera doesn't have continuous autofocus. If you use Leica L lenses, or Panasonic L lenses, but the L mounts, you have one-shot autofocus. So you have to press the autofocus button on here and it's gonna just focus on the objects. So this is good if you're gonna do an interview and just wanna focus on the subject. You press that button and it's gonna focus on there, but from there, you have to kind of manually focus if the subject changes their location. So like I mentioned, I use this for YouTube videos, for home studio videos, and interviews. So all this stuff over here is what I do to rig this out for my purpose. And honestly, for YouTube videos, I think this is an amazing camera. It's one of my favorite cameras. And if you need just like a talking head YouTube camera, you can't go wrong with this. If you can pick it up for $1,500 still, Blackmagic RAW, you can learn how to color grade RAW video, and it's just so awesome. There's cheaper cameras that you can use for that. Currently, I'm shooting with the ZV-E1, and you guys can see it's still a very good picture. But if you want to experience RAW and you don't want to get one of Red's like old cameras to experience RAW or any other cameras, I know a lot of newer Canon cameras has RAW Lite, which isn't the same as the B-RAW you get from Blackmagic cameras. So yeah, enough talking, let's rig this thing out. So the first thing I have on here is this Tilta cage. So what's cool about this cage, if you put the battery grip on here, you take off this bottom, and there's a bracket you can mount on one of these sides, and then it grips also the battery grip. The one bad part about it, if you attach this and put the cage on the actual battery grip too, you have to kind of screw it all together, and then you can't get to the bottom battery. So the 2 batteries that go into battery grip you can access, but this one you have to kind of take apart this bottom of this cage to get to that one battery. And I thought that was a little too much. I didn't want to do that, so I went a different way. So I still think this cage, this is the cage, the Tilta for Blackmagic 6K, is an amazing cage, but I don't use it with the battery grip. So next thing I did was attach this pole over here. And then I have a NATA rail up here. And on this side, we have a newer, just a standard cable for cable management. Another thing I did for this camera is I took off these rubber pieces, rubber grommets on the side. It just makes it easier to plug in everything. So I use this XLR mic for these talking head videos. So I need access to these mini XLR ports. So taking off all these rubber little grommets, which you can do just with a few screws, is so much easier. It just works so much better. And then I have a matte screen protector on the back. So yeah, this is the cage, and let's put the lens on. So the lens I decided to go with is this 7 Artisans 35 millimeter 1.4. So it's a fully manual lens. Like we mentioned, this camera can only do one shot autofocus, so it's not really a point to get an autofocus lens. It just, for one shot autofocus, it's not worth it. So I got this lens. It's a 1.4 on a full frame sensor, raw, awesome. So another reason why I'm not using this for my action camera or anything like this, the readout speeds for this camera aren't the best. So if you're doing, fast panning, I do sometimes, so car videos, I don't think this is the best camera for this. This camera is more for cinematic videos. If you're shooting movies, interviews, things of that sort, talking head. For fast moving subjects, you can fix a lot of the gelling effect you get with these slow readout speeds, but it's still not perfect. So that's why I'm using this camera as my studio camera, and I use other cameras with faster readouts for action shots and things of that sort. So we have a lens, we have a cage on here. So next, let's put this Tilta pocket follow focus. So obviously on this lens, we can just focus right here, but I think it's just easier with this follow focus motor to perform focusing. So we're gonna grab this rubber grip. Make sure it's nice and sturdy, and then we're gonna mount this on here. And this just makes it so much easier to focus instead of having your hand under the lens. So even if I take this out for some shots, this is much easier than focus on the actual lens. And it's adding weight to this camera kind of gets rid of some jitters. A heavier camera, you get rid of those micro jitters because this doesn't have any in-body image stabilization. So you get some shakes and everything, but it's turning out pretty good, nice and heavy now. So next thing we're gonna do is take this SmallRig V-mount battery plates. When I seen this online, I knew I wanted this for this camera because of its poor battery life. So like I mentioned, a battery grip with 3 batteries is one way to get extra battery life out of this, but I didn't like it with this cage and this build. And you have to take the battery grip out to replace that battery that's actually in the camera. So I think this is a better choice. And with this cage, it just slides on the bottom. And we're just gonna lock it into place. And here you go. So yeah, a V-mount is one solution to kind of help the battery life on this camera. And you could also use it as like a shoulder rest. It makes it very easy to operate this camera that way. So yeah, this is a smaller V-mount battery plate, and I'm gonna include all the links for all these products in the description below. So the battery I decided to go with for this camera is this SmallRig. It's the VB50 Mini. It's a mini V-mount. SmallRig makes awesome V-mount batteries. So let's strap this on the back. What I like about these batteries too is you get the readout of the percentage on the back of the battery. So it makes it very easy to know how much battery you got left. And with the battery on the back, it balances. So we're gonna plug in the cable for this in a minute. Let's mount everything first. So next thing I'm gonna do is mount this handle on top of it to this NATO rail I mounted here. And I'm putting this handle on here. Obviously, one reason is so it's easier to grab this camera. But another reason I like it, if I use it for these talking head videos, if I have the screen at the front, I can see if I'm in focus. So it makes it easier to make sure the subject is in focus if you're videotaping yourself. So the screen I'm using for this camera is this Portkeys HD7H. So it's a 7-inch monitor, and I have it on this Siri monitor mount. So we have another NATO rail here, also from Siri, and this thing just goes on here. And it's super cool package right now. So yeah, this way it's a big screen. If I'm videotaping myself, I can see if I'm in focus on here. Sorry if you guys can't see me right now. And yeah, it's an awesome screen. I think 7 inches is a perfect screen size for these type of cameras. 5 inches is a little too small. So, and yeah, this is the setup. I'll show you, let's get this wired up and I'll show you a couple other things. Also, when I have it on my tripod, I have a big tripod plate, so this kind of balances a lot better on this big tripod plate that I just mount to the bottom. So right now I don't have this tripod plate because I'm videotaping with another camera, so that's why it's also tipping over. So let's plug this in. I'm gonna take this smaller rig HDMI cable. And I like how this camera has a full-size HDMI. I hate when cameras have those mini or micro HDMIs. It's just, they're very flimsy. Sometimes you lose connection and you can break your HDMI port very easily. It's just with a full-size HDMI, it's just so much more sturdy. So we're gonna put this NP battery on the screen. And the next two things I have over here is the power cable for the V-mount. So this is the 12 volt that locks in. So nice and secure. And the 12 volt is right here. This is how we're powering the camera. I still have a battery on the inside of this camera. So we have this acts like a DC input, and we have a battery inside the camera too. So sometimes instead of using this V-mount battery, when I'm at home, I just plug this camera directly into the wall. The Blackmagic 6K full frame comes with its own power cable that you can just plug into the wall. So it's super cool as a studio camera. A lot of cameras, especially mirrorless cameras, do not come with like a plug to plug into the wall or anything. You have to use like a dummy battery for Sony batteries. I have a Condor Blue dummy battery that I plug into V-mount, and yeah, you don't have like an easy way just to plug it directly into the wall. You can use a USB-C cable, that's a solution, but it's cool how these cameras just come with the power cable to plug into the wall. And the last thing we got over here is XLR. So it's XLR to mini XLR. This camera has mini XLR inputs. That does not bother me that they're not full-size XLR. I think HDMI being mini would be a bigger deal, but the XLRs not being mini is not that big of a deal. So now I'm gonna put some of these cables on this side over here. I'll probably just mount the HDMI here, because the other ones lock, so they don't pull out. The HDMI obviously is not locking, so I put the HDMI cable in here. So yeah, this nice little Blackmagic Pocket 6K full frame is not so small no more. It's not very pocketable unless you have big pockets. So this is my setup. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys are getting a Pixis, or if you have this camera, or what uses do you guys have for the Blackmagic 6K full frame. I think it's an amazing camera for the price. I don't think you can get a cheaper cinema camera that shoots B-RAW Obviously, these cameras should be raw, but you're not going to get better raw quality for the price. I think this is an amazing cinema camera. It doesn't look like a cinema camera, but as you guys can see, rigging it out, it just looks a lot more professional, and you can shoot some professional videos, films, movies, indie films, whatever you're shooting. So let me know what you guys think of my setup. And even with this V-mount on the back of it, you can still access this screen. So I use this screen to shoot myself. That's why it's flipped towards me. But this screen is still usable. The only inconvenience of having it like this, it's hard to see the battery life on a V-mount. You kind of have to look down. But yeah, these screens and these Blackmagic 6K full frames are amazing. And yeah, so I can still access it. And like I mentioned, you can use this as like a shoulder strap. So yeah, I love this setup. I'm glad I found this usage for this camera, because when I got my red Komodo, I was kind of wondering, what am I going to use the Blackmagic 6K full frame from? And now I have a use for everything. I shoot mostly weddings with my Sonys, and sometimes I bring the red Komodo. And the red Komodo is amazing for fast-moving subjects like cars, automotive, things like that, because of its, sensor readout. It reads the whole sensor at the same time. And yeah, and this is my home studio camera, so amazing camera. I highly recommend it. Yeah, shoot me any questions you guys might have. And yeah, thank you for checking out this video. See you guys later.